Welcome to Second Wind Women. I'm Karen Spees, and I'm here with Chandra Skye. And Chandra, here's Chandra's little intro. Chandra has traveled the world and explored all 50 U.S. states, gaining insights into how different people relate. With 40 years of therapy, physical fitness, and determination, she has freed herself from trauma stored in her body since the womb. She became asymptomatic. I don't know why that was challenging, from PMDD and now hosts peer support groups. She's also healed her chronic hip pain with Pilates. She chose divorce as an act of self-preservation and has transformed her pain in her life. Let me start again. That's too many fallings. Over. I have a little thing, and then when I put it up, it covered the whole screen, so I couldn't see your face. So let me try that again. My gosh. All right. Hi, welcome to Second Wind Women. I'm Karen Spees, and I'm here with Chandra Skye. Welcome, Chandra.
Thank you.
Chandra has traveled the world and explored all 50 U.S. states, gaining insights into how different people relate. With 40 years of therapy, physical fitness, and determination, she has freed herself from trauma stored in her body since the womb. She became asymptomatic from PMDD and now hosts peer support groups. She's also healed her chronic hip pain with Pilates. She's chosen divorce as an act of self-preservation and has transformed pain into a life of her own design. She's now in Wichita, Kansas, and she supports hospice patients, runs PMDD groups, teaches Pilates to those recovering from addiction, writes, and creates wearable art. Wow, you are busy. Where there was once despair, there is now a woman with a megawatt shine. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, where do you want to start? Where's a good
My
place to
goodness.
start? The beginning?
Anywhere. Beginning. Let's go for it.
So you say that you healed yourself from trauma that had happened in the womb. That's probably a good place to start.
Okay. We're going back to the womb. Rock on. As a small little person, you know, teeny tiny human, post-traumatic stress wasn't a term for anyone outside of veterans. So they were
Right.
just starting to research PTSD with veterans, which is a very fair place to start. However, I had a mother who had experienced physical assault, domestic abuse, and she had gotten us out of that situation. Fortunately, the trauma was already there and had been there since I was brewing in her uterus.
Mhm.
So the first few years were pretty fraught with continued trauma.
I think that's really underestimated and overlooked. I had somebody at my kids' preschool who had adopted a little girl whose mother was, I mean, she was really an addict. So that there was that on top, but there was also violence. And I think we tend to just segment and believe that babies start right when they're born, right? And we tend to discount or ignore what's happening all during that developmental time. So how did you get in touch with that developmental level of trauma?
Well, it was a focus from early childhood. My mom got me into therapy. I think I started at age 5. And so I've been kind of in and out of therapy my entire life. So it was always a focus just to see how messed up I was and trying to get to the root of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And was it mainly talk therapy that we're doing? Were you doing somatic therapy or any other kind of
You know,
processing?
I think it was mostly in the CBT realm of therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. So it was a lot of talk therapy. I didn't try somatic therapy for the first time until I was in my 40s. And I think I got more out of 3 sessions of somatic trauma therapy than I had in decades of talk therapy.
Yeah, it's a shame. I don't think it even became a thing until maybe, geez, I don't know, the 2000s, maybe
That sounds about
2010.
right. Hmm. That it
Yeah,
started really taking off.
I have had, several friends who've there was a somatic therapy program at where I did my graduate studies, so I had a lot of friends who were in that field. Um, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So you say 3 different sessions where you think did more than all your talk
Absolutely.
sessions?
Absolutely. Because it really kind of, it was like, I know this is going to sound super woo woo, but it was almost like time traveling. You know, I went back to these moments where this trauma had really sewn itself in, and I was able to kind of interact with myself
Mhm.
at that age. I don't know how to better describe it in a nutshell, but it was incredible. It was very restorative.
Yeah, it's okay to be woo-woo. It's okay.
Rock on. I dig it.
And truthfully, like, when you say time travel, I think you're like we're kind of like, I don't know, glossing it a little bit, but, like, your past experiences live inside you. That's why you had the trauma from your, prenatal time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's really just a matter of finding where it lives in your body and reminding your nervous system that, hey, that was a memory. It's not something we're living through right now. No matter how scary it was, that moment is over. And it's very easy to forget that in our bones.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you think about you go to see, like I don't do horror movies, but I have friends who do horror movies, and you just see, like, a situation and your heartbeat speeds up, all your muscles tense up, and just, like, the interaction between the body and mind is so obvious. Why did it take us so long?
Hmm. Exactly. Strangely, I'm also a big horror movie fan. I think there's,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. There's something very calming. I know this is going to sound so weird, but you know that it has a time limit. No matter what I see on this screen, it's not real.
Right,
It is just a story, and it's going to be ending in an hour and 24 minutes. It's
right.
very cut and dry, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. How are they gonna get out of it? They only have 15 minutes left.
Exactly. The killer has to do their monologue now.
Totally, totally. So is this, kind of somatic work how you got involved in I mean, you're doing a lot of different kind of healing things. Let's talk a little bit about maybe the PMDD first and then the Pilates?
Sure, absolutely. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Now, I pulled some figures off of some reports just to give a number value of just how staggering this disorder is. So, the UN reports that there's roughly 1.9 billion ovulators right now, or as of 2022. Okay. National Institute for Health says that about 3 to 8% of ovulators have PMDD. So if you boil that down to the numbers, that's 57 million to 150 million ovulators living with this condition,
Thank you for boiling it down because when you get numbers that big, I can't even fathom.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And this is where it gets scary. 34% of sufferers attempt suicide. So when you boil that down, that is 19 million to 51 million globally attempting to end our lives over a condition that most people have never heard of. Yes.
Wow.
And it's basically your brain has like an allergic reaction to the normal hormone fluctuations that happen throughout the menstrual cycle. So for many of us, it starts hitting around ovulation. For others, it lasts ovulation through luteal and then all the way up until bleeding starts. So for a good roughly 2 weeks out of every single month, PMDDers lose the ability to have healthy relationships, go to work. Some have incredible joint pain that makes us bedridden. We lose cognitive functioning. So even writing an email and finding our vocabulary becomes impossible. I remember in one of my worst years, I ran three red lights in the course of 1 year. Just completely disassociating while driving.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a very scary disorder, and it's under-researched and underserved.
How did you find out that how did you get the diagnosis? How did you find out about it? Because, I've only heard about it. I heard about Ehlers-Danlos system before syndrome before I heard about PMDD, which has just been in the last couple of years, maybe.
Yeah. And it was just added to the DSM only in 2013. Before that, it was just called good old run of the mill PMS or hysteria, or women
Right.
who just couldn't pull our big panties up and get along with the program.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for my walk with it. I discovered after an argument with my ex husband, I was looking back on our text messages and noticed a pattern of every 28 days we were having a big blowout. So I, consulted the Oracle, the Google, for 28 days fighting with spouse. And one of the top search terms was PMDD. Like, oh, what is this? When I found it in the DSM and it said you have to hit at least 5 of these symptoms in order to be diagnosed, I hit every single one in the list. And to be diagnosed, you have to have, ideally, 3 to 4 months of tracking data. And that's if you have a provider that's heard of it, has experience with it, and can diagnose this. That proved to be its own challenge because I had to search. I was living in Denver at the time, and I think I had to search out 30 to 35 OBGYNs until I found one that had experience with PMDD.
It's just that there's so much implications for this on a huge level, right? Because there's always this idea that women are, unreliable or whatever because of their hormonal fluctuations, and women who don't have this intense experience of PMDD are disc of people who are in authority who are like, well, all women are crazy. And they're like, no, that's not true. But some women are actually struggling a lot. And those are providing evidence for the people that are discounting all women. Oh my gosh. Wow. So you only really learned about this somewhat. I mean, if you used Google, it couldn't have been that. I'm old.
Oh,
I was around
yeah. No,
before
no,
Google.
this is 6 years ago. It was during COVID.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you end up finding somebody who was able to give you that diagnosis?
Oh my gosh. Telling off a good handful of OBGYNs until I found a doctor with Denver Health that not only knew of PMDD, but had experience treating PMDD. And she was amazing. She made me feel seen. She made me feel heard. And I also found a therapist who knows PMDD. So I finally had a treatment team and I didn't feel quite so alone. And the more I learned about it, the scarier it was because my symptoms, one of the markers with PMDD is it can hit really hard as a young woman enters the world of the ovulating, right? So symptoms can be really harsh for preteens. And they can also be really harsh as women enter perimenopause. And that's kind of where mine hit me like a train.
Mhm.
Before my 40s, my PMDD presented as occasional depression, but mostly rage. I would just rage out and hulk out. But as my 40s started to tick on, the suicidal component came into play.
Mhm.
And so I spent, I'd say, a good 3 to 4 years just in constant suicidal ideation.
Wow. Wow. So how do you I'm assuming this is something you manage, not something you cure, right? So
Mhm.
what's the normal course of management for somebody who's suffering from PMDD?
The 2 first line treatments that were given are birth control. There's one under the brand name Yaz or Bayaz, I think is the generic. Okay. Yeah, I did too. It made my symptoms way worse. And then the other is an SSRI. And I held off on the SSRI as long as I could because I believed, no, if I just work hard enough, I'm going to be able to manage this.
Talk to the right person and have them tell you the
Yes.
right things.
Exactly, exactly. And trying to power through. did not work. I attempted suicide twice. They were both very impulsive. And after the second attempt, I knew that I was no longer safe trying to do this as I was. So I spoke with my provider at Denver Health and got on Zoloft. So Zoloft and Prozac are two of the first lines that you'll hear for PMDD.
And was that you never hear about Zoloft or Prozac anymore. Are those still the right, or has a new generation of SSRIs come out since then?
There's plenty of SSRIs. Not all are created equal, and not all PMDDers are created equal either. So for some of us, neither of those work, and they've been able to find relief on a different SSRI. But the two that I still hear most in support groups are these two.
Okay. I thought those were, phased out for the newer, more specific versions like they seem to do with all drugs, right?
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So is that how you're working mainly with people who have PMD? What are you doing when you're working with people who have PMDD?
So I run, it's through the International Association for Premenstrual Disorders. It's iapmd.org. They're amazing. They were where I found all of my resources as a PMDDer. And before I linked up with them, I linked up with a person I found on Reddit, and we started running support groups on our own in 2021. In 2023, when I left my ex-husband, I linked up with IAPMD. And so I run a group on PMDD and relationships, because relationships can be so difficult to navigate with PMDD. And it's all kinds of relationships. It's romantic, it's workplace, it's family, it's friends. Anyone we have a hard time relating with, we discuss it in these groups.
Hi, it's Karen. I wanted to remind you guys to go to secondwindwomen.com/community offers to see all the offers from our guests for free meetups, discounts on products, consults, etc. So do check that out, and don't forget that we are here to support you. We can help you with Google ads, websites, Facebook and Instagram ads, Google reviews. There's so many digital ways we can support your business, and we're happy to help. Just reach out to me and my team. Right. Right. Gosh, I have so many questions. So, is the idea of the groups kind of like community support, and all these people are actually, using therapy and or pharmaceuticals to manage things, or is it just like a smattering of people who aren't managing, people who've just found out, people who've done it for 10 years? Like, what's the makeup of your groups?
It's as varied as PMDD warriors. Some of us have the privilege of living in a country where we can talk about our period. Some of us have the privilege of being of a race that isn't just automatically discounted when we go into a doctor's office.
Yeah.
Others don't have the resources of a doctor, don't have financial resources, don't have any family support, any friends who can support. So we really come from all walks of life through. I've spoken, I think, to someone on 5 different continents in the last few years. So it really is a patchwork of people just doing our best.
And are people just finding you through Reddit? I mean, how are people? I just can't fathom how, if you're like, you know, completely first of all, like you brought up, in a culture where, women's health issues are not taken. I mean, I know people here who are, quote unquote minorities, are often their pain is not respected or acknowledged. But if you're even in a culture where you can't even talk about having a period, like, how would you even get to a point where you understand that PMDD is a disorder that you have, instead of just, oh, well, I guess I'm just crazy.
Usually it falls on warriors to do whatever research they have available to them. I don't know the prevalence of Google in other countries, but
Right.
Google or Google-esque um, are typically how a lot of people are finding PMDD. And I found IAPMD early on as a resource, and they do a great job of hosting different support groups. So while I do one for relationships, there's also one who does a group for partners of PMDDers.
Mm,
There's another one who does over 40, another one who does PMDD in parents. There's chemical menopause is another way that some people are finding relief, having to actually remove their ovaries and uterus, or go into the chemical menopause to try
right,
and alleviate symptoms.
right. So would you say that PMDD was a factor in your divorce?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like many Western women of a certain Gen X age, I hit my 40s and my middle fingers just kind of went up, and I'm like, I can't hold the world together anymore. Whatever this is starting to impact everything. I mean, my career plummeted. I made great money. I had a great sales job. I had a great marriage, but I was holding the world on my shoulders. And I think I was paired up with someone who just was not capable of picking me up as well as carrying himself in
Right,
the ways that I had been.
right. Yeah. I mean, to be fair or unfair, like men are not taught that that's something that's expected of them a lot of the time. They're the main character, right? And they expect the world to rise to their occasion, you know?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially
And
American men. Yeah.
especially American men. And you said divorce was an act of self-preservation. I'm assuming that that meant there was some domestic violence in your situation.
There was once. There was run of the mill emotional abuse, gaslighting, really making me question reality, especially once I became sick. Then I had a diagnosis like, well, you're just not remembering it correctly. I'm like, bro,
Wow. Yeah. You
yeah,
can't win, right?
can't win. It got to the point that I started recording our interactions so that I could hold on to facts and hold on to truth. So I didn't feel like I was going even crazier than the PMDD was making me feel.
Right.
Um, and then there was one instance of domestic assault, and we were living in Spain at the time. And I left. I packed up a carry on, left that night, and I had no job, no home, no prospects, and what I thought was a pretty significant disorder that was still trying to kill me. And
Yeah.
all of that felt preferable to staying in that marriage.
Yeah. Would you say that PMDD would be, is frequently misdiagnosed as depression?
Depression is one of the symptoms of
Right.
PMDD. So it's episodic, but it's mostly misdiagnosed as bipolar or borderline. Those are two misdiagnoses I hear of a lot in our support groups. Bipolar doesn't typically match the lack of mania that PMDDers get. Once we start bleeding, and about 7 days after that first blood, we are normal in our brains for a good week and
Mhm.
a half before it all starts again. But there's not typically a mania that goes with that. It's just, okay, I'm cool. I'm good, you know?
Huh.
And borderline is another misdiagnosis due to the fear of rejection, the anxious attachment. I don't know if anxious attachment is the right word, but the attachment styles, it really messes with how you see your relationships. So seeing a psychiatrist or therapist in the wrong time of month may get you a diagnosis not matching.
Right. So how do you in your group, because I can, working with relationships is its own lifelong challenge for most people, right? Who don't even have something like PMDD, impacting their perceptions or ability to communicate. So how do you help people with that?
The hardest question I've gotten yet. I think people just like to know that they're not alone. You know, so many of us find these groups because our brain or the people around us might convince us that it's just you. You're alone. No one feels like this. No one feels these weird symptoms that you feel. No one feels like their skin is crawling off their body. You're just a weirdo. And in these groups, people start sharing their stories and seeing the nods and seeing the hands go to the heart, like, oh my God, I feel seen. That right there is where I feel I do the most good, just by showing up and letting them talk.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, not to be dramatic or anything. I have a tendency to be dramatic, but it sounds like you're really like saving lives, right? Because if people are prone to depression and suicidal ideation because they feel so isolated and misunderstood, right? A group like that could make all the difference to somebody.
It does. It absolutely
Yeah.
does. I can only hope that that is the impact that I could have.
Right. Right. So
Certainly why I do it.
yeah, I can see why you do it. You have a couple other things that are you working with PMDD people professionally, or is that like your passion project?
It's my passion project, but I see it figuring prominently in my future career. I'd like to be working with OBGYNs and other medical providers to have them better understand this condition because, as we discussed at the beginning of this, there is a lot of people who are suffering and not
Yeah.
getting the help they need. So I think getting in the faces of the medical community and saying, hey, people are dying. You need to get your shit together. Pardon my French. I think that's probably where I could do some good in the future.
So, like in an advocacy level, you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've like I said, I've heard of it, but I always thought it was just like a bad period. I didn't know
So
it
did
was.
we. We just thought, oh, I'm just being dramatic. It's just hitting me extra hard this month. No, wanting to die is not a part of a normal menstrual cycle. Doesn't have to be. No.
Okay. So then you also mentioned that you teach Pilates and work with hospice patients. So how are
Yes.
those tied into you see, I see a little thread here, a little woven thread of helping people in a particular way.
Well, hospice came first. I started as a hospice volunteer in early 2000s, 2004, I think it was. And there is just something so sacred and magical about humans at the end of life. That's where the secrets of life come from, is listening to these stories. And it gave me a great relationship with my own mortality in a way that's not morbid, but rather it's a fact of life. It's going to happen someday. I've ever since I try and have conversations about mortality with loved ones. I'm still the only outlier in the family who does that, but that's okay. And now I do private caregiving, so I work with families directly if they can't find caregiving in other channels, and I offer sliding scale depending on their ability to pay.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend who did death doula training. Have you heard about this? Yeah.
Mhm. It's very
Yeah.
fascinating.
It's
Maybe another certification coming down the pike.
it's really interesting and cool, and in fact, she had some homework where she had to practice wrapping up so a couple of us, she wrapped us up in sheets. It was so, like, weird and real and yeah, yeah, really, really interesting stuff, and in fact, I know you're in Wichita. In Kansas City, they have a thing called I think it's called the Death Cafe, where you should look it up.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's like once a month and it's people I don't know if they're talking about like mourning or I remember hearing about it because my father had like a long drawn out battle with Alzheimer's, but it was and I was like kind of looking into it before he had passed. But I think it's for yeah, I don't know, you should look it up. Because my friend who's a
Okay.
death doula is like, "Oh, it's so cool. It's really interesting." But it's a special kind of person that has the kind of bandwidth for that, you know?
And really, we all have it. That's the thing. What I do isn't different. What death doulas do isn't any different. We all have the capacity. We've just lost the ability to relate with mortality in our society.
Well, and I think truthfully, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of us have lost the ability to be uncomfortable at
Yes.
all,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, whether it's discussing something you believe in or talking about your inevitable demise or, I mean, we're just I keep coming back so many times to that. Do you see that movie Wall-E where
No, I never saw it.
oh my gosh, you should see it. The synopsis is it's a robot that got left behind. The world is basically trashed. And the people all went into a big space station that's floating around. But it's completely like it's the opposite of stoicism. It's there's no resistance to anything. Everybody is immensely large and is on like a little hover chair and just drinks big gulps all the time and is just amused by things. There's no kind of strife at all.
Mm.
Which and then their spaceship kind of things get messed up on their spaceship and then they don't. But to me it's such an accurate assessment of how, particularly in the West. I mean, we've talked a little bit about, countries that aren't as privileged as the West, but particularly in the West, where we have so many resources, we have just made things so dang comfortable and frictionless. I mean, you know, out with outliers like PMDD or, medical issues or, there's always going to be things that come up. But I think people just when you talk about death, it's just, nobody wants to face their mortality and talk about uncomfortable. People won't even go to a room where they have to talk with people they don't know unless they're going to drink something or smoke something to make them a little bit more less afraid, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't
Wow.
like being vulnerable. We don't like being uncomfortable. We don't like not consuming. We're very
Right.
bad little consumers. Yeah.
Right.
Anything to be entertained and just force all the realities of the world out.
Right. And but when you're in a situation like with PMDD, like you are uncomfortable, right? Which feels wrong, which I think makes it even harder, you know?
Exactly. Because, a lot of people who don't understand it think that by giving advice like, well, you just need to think positively. Like, I'm going to punch you in the throat. You don't think that that was the first thing I tried?
Yeah.
No. If the brain doesn't allow positive thoughts and if that filter is broken, the dysphoric component of PMDD, there is no thinking positively. It's all bad and you have to fake it until the
Yeah.
next cycle.
Have you ever read the book Emotional Intelligence? It's an old
Many
one.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but they talk a lot about victim blaming based on people not having a positive enough attitude. Right. Again, I think that's really prevalent, particularly with people who view themselves as more like advanced or spiritual or whatever. They're like, oh, well, you're in control of everything. You should just change your mind. It'll change your reality. But that's not always, that's not who are they to know about your mind and what's
Right.
happening, right?
Yeah. I couldn't manifest being healthy. No matter how much I tried, my brain still tried to kill me every single month, no matter
Oh
what.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had a friend who used to she managed her PMS with chocolate. Like, she had to have chocolate every month or she would literally be bedridden, and chocolate was a thing that kinda got her through, which I always thought was like, I mean, what what do I know? Whatever, great. If it works for you, great. But I just found it amazing that something like chocolate had such a profound effect on her that it enabled her to live her life differently.
I believe it. I think it's chromium that chocolate has. I
I
might
thought it
be
was
wrong.
selenium.
Maybe that's what it is. Whatever it is, it's magical and it's great. I highly endorse chocolate.
I mean, however people can support themselves. So how can people connect with you? I mean, if somebody has a friend or a family member who's suffering with PMDD or needs to know more about PMDD or thinks they might have, PMDD and wants to find out resources kind of in their area, how would somebody connect with you?
Well, as much as I'd like to say that my website's great, it's awful. My website is awful. So my Instagram is probably the best way to reach me. And that's where the majority of my clients reach out to me. So that handle is Strolling Skye, StrollingsSkye. I also have a Pilates account. So after Strolling Skye, it's underscore Pilates. If someone is interested in Pilates as a way of dealing with chronic pain. But those two are the best ways to get in contact with me. And it's also where I put any PMDD related content is going to go on my Instagram account.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I want to continue talking with you about this because so many of the people, as you know, like the people we're talking with on this podcast, so many of them are healers. The majority of them are, women over 45. And I just think there's a real opportunity there for maybe exploring resources that could help people with PMDD in a less allopathic way, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm here for
Yeah.
it. Let's do it.
Cool. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for talking with us. I learned a lot.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much. You gave me a great platform to talk about something that is so dangerous to many of us ovulators. So thank you for giving me a space to kind of throw some light on it.
You're so welcome. Boop.